Drake's honestly one of my favorite artists of all time, and he's also one of the biggest rappers in the entire world. He has been dropping hits for 15 years and his sound has shaped the whole generation of music. So today I'm breaking down his production and I'm making 3 beats inspired by all the different sides of his sound. And one trick I'm sharing in this video can actually change how you make samples forever, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Drake has a ton of great songs. Tracks like Headlines and Landed are definitely some of my favorites, but one song from For All the Dogs stood out to me, and that song is 8 AM in Charlotte. I love how simple that sample is. It's clean, it's soulful, and it just lets Drake just go off with his bars. So for the first beat in this video, I wanted to make something that captures this same energy and make my own sample from scratch. Now, there's just one problem. The sample they used in 8 AM Charlotte is definitely recorded with a real live piano, and that's something I don't have access to. But while preparing for this video, I actually found a way to make your pianos sound like they were recorded live. And honestly, I feel like it changed the way I approach sample making completely. And I've been producing for 10 years and I just found this method now, so that says a lot. But we'll get to that in just a minute. First, we need to lay down some chords. I used to think it was super hard to come up with nice, soulful chords like the ones you hear on Drake's more emotional tracks. But the more I practiced, the more I realized that it's actually more about keeping things simple and choosing the right sounds. One of the biggest keys is actually the piano you're using, and there's so many out there. And yeah, recording a live piano would definitely sound the best. But if you're working with VSTs, the one I always come back to is Wing Upright in Keyscape, because it's got that exact style or character that you're looking for. It's almost kind of rusty and actually kind of emotional. And you can like hear all of the little mechanics going on inside of the piano as well. So that makes it feel so much more real than a lot of other VSTs. So I started with just a simple 2-chord progression using 7th chords and also added some filler notes on top just to make it sound more interesting. Now, sure, you could just put on some RC20 on this and call it a day, and sure, that does help, but I promised that we were going to make this piano sound like it actually was recorded live. So here's what I did. I just grabbed my iPhone and recorded the piano coming out of my monitors into the voice memo app that I then sent back to my recording session in FL Studio, and it picks up all the little room noises and the imperfections in the acoustics in here and the monitors, and it actually sounds like it was recorded live. It's a super simple trick, but the difference is crazy. And one sound I really associate with Drake is that ambient sign pad. It's all over his catalog, and honestly, I love that sound and I love the feeling of that sound. I've used it in so many of my beats, and every time I've worked with an artist, I always find some kind of pocket where I can put that sine wave in. So to bring more of that energy into this melody and some weight underneath, I jumped into Analog Lab and found a preset called Choral Organ. Then I copied the same chords that I made earlier into this plugin, but I just removed all of the rhythmic stuff to make it a little bit more spacey. And since the vibe or the melody was already coming together, I felt like, why not take it one step further? So I recorded myself doing some ooh, ooh, ah, ah into the microphone, and then I ran it through an AI voice changer. I used Audemy.com, but I'm sure there's other AI voice changers online that might be even better. Matter of fact, if you know a really solid AI voice changer website, just make sure to comment that in the comments down below so we all can take advantage. Anyway, I brought that vocal back into the session, doubled the speed, pitched it down, and then I threw on Little Altar Boy, which is a formatting VST, and it kind of changes the character of the voice without actually changing the pitch. It's kind of hard to describe, but that's essentially what it does. And then I threw on Fruity Flangus, which is a very underrated plugin for making vocals like this, especially if you're using FL Studio. But before I play you the full sample, there's one big thing I did on the sample that made a huge difference. I routed every single instrument into one bus channel. That way I can mess with all of the sounds that's going into that bus channel without adding the same effect onto every single sound, if that makes sense. So to glue everything together, I started with an EQ, the Pro Q2, and I just cut out some lows and some harsh frequencies. But the real gem here is Decimort 2. One of Drake's main producers, 40, who actually was involved with creating that underwater sound for Drake, actually said that it's not about putting on a low pass filter and cutting out all of the high frequencies. He actually uses a way of degrading a sample or changing the sample rate of the whole sample. So those higher frequencies actually get deleted from the sample altogether. So they're not even there in the first place. So it sounds like it's filtered down, but it's actually not. The whole sample rate has been changed, and that's exactly what Decimort 2 does. And I think Kavi has mentioned this in one of his videos as well. And if you're going for that underwater sound, I think it's definitely a great plugin to check out. Alright, so here's how everything sounds together. First without Decimort 2 on, and then with it on. And one song I really love with Drake is Love All with JC. The way the drums and the bass works together on that song is just incredible. I mean, it's so simple, but it hits so freaking hard. So I wanted to bring some of that into this beat as well. So I went into Nexus and went for a preset called Love Child. It's kind of like a synth bass, and it has exactly that smooth, round texture that I was looking for. So I just laid down a pretty simple bass pattern following the root notes of the chords and making them a little bit more bouncy. And then for the drums, I felt like I wanted to keep it pretty simple because a lot of Drake songs are pretty simple. So I went with just a simple trap kick and a rim shot and a few different hi-hats and perks to kind of bring some more movement and texture to the drums. I'll play you the full beat a little bit later in the video, and don't worry, we'll get to some of that hard-hitting trap stuff later on. But for now, even though this sampled beat already leans into Drake's kind of R&B sound, I wanted to make sure that I cover as much as humanly possible in this video and give you as much value as I possibly can. So next up, we're gonna cook up something a little bit more moody and melodic, something more in the R&B side of Drake's sound. And just like with the last sample that we did, I started off this sample by opening up Keyscape and going into the Wing Upright preset again and laying down a chord progression using 7th chords to give it that emotional, soulful feeling. So yeah, it's pretty similar so far, but I actually went a different direction with the processing this time. Instead of doing that recording monitor kind of thing, I actually threw on RC20 because I wanted it to feel a little bit more programmed and clean, but I still wanted that kind of vinyl character. And then I threw on some half time to really lock in that moody vibe. Now, here's the thing. When you're making these kinds of loops, the key is to be super picky with the sounds you use, because you don't want to overcrowd the sample with just a bunch of layers taking up space just for no reason. Some of Drake's moody songs are actually super simple, but the texture and the sound selection, that's what makes them hit so hard. It's the kind of stuff that makes you want to take your car out and just drive in the middle of the night, just you and the music and no traffic. That feeling is what I'm going after here. So to add a bit more atmosphere and body to this sample, I went into Nexus again and picked out the June Pad 3 preset, copied over the same chords, added half time again, and then I put on some chorus to make it a little bit more wider. And now to finish off the whole sample, I added a few more layers that really bring it to life. First, I reversed the piano to make some soft ambient phrases. And then I made this kind of shimmering synth using Crystallizer. And I wish I could tell you exactly what preset I used for that shimmering sound. Unfortunately, I didn't save it. I exported that MIDI clip into audio and just deleted that Analog Lab VST. But I'm pretty sure it was just a stock Analog Lab preset that just played the same chords as the piano did. I also grabbed a really cool vocal loop from Splice, and that really added some movement and emotion to the whole sample that you really are looking for when making these kinds of samples for Drake. And for the final touch, I added a background texture to set the whole sample into a room, which adds so much ambient texture and really brings that late night feeling to life. So here's what the full sample sounds like now. And we are going to switch up the drums into more high energy trap drums later on, but for this beat I wanted to once again go with the pretty simple formula of just using a kick and a rim shot, and obviously some hi-hats to just keep the movement throughout the song. And for the bass I used a pretty simple Reese bass this time, adding a bit more of that texture and movement, and here's how that sounds together. All that R&B stuff is great, and I love making those kinds of melodies and loops and beats, but there are a few Drake songs that I always come back to. I mean, songs like Way Too Sexy, First Person Shooter, and What Did I Miss? They got that up-tempo, hard-hitting trap energy that just makes you want to turn up. So now, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into some of the fun stuff. One of my favorite songs by Drake right now, the one that I've been playing non-stop, are his new song, What Did I Miss? I love when songs have that brass melody. It sounds so majestic and it feels like I want to go out and play sports or something. So for this beat, I wanted to take some inspiration from that, and the brass sound in What Did I Miss don't sound like a live recorded brass to me. It's got more of a digital sound. So once again, I jumped into Nexus and started digging through the brass presets and went with the preset called Fat Brass. And here's the melody I came up using that preset. At first I thought I'd have to layer that melody with a bunch of different synths and other brass sounds to make it sound big and huge, but this preset was already sounding super huge right out of the box, so I just layered it with a simple flute patch from Analog Lab just to give it a little bit more texture. Next up, I wanted to add some kind of synth melody on top of that brass melody, and I found one inside of Sky Keys, which is actually a very good plugin, by the way. I bought it not too long ago, and it has definitely become one of my go-to plugins for making melodies like this. So for the vibe on the lead, I wanted to feel like a battle cry of some sort, or some kind of out call to go out into battle. So I just recorded myself playing an E note on my keyboard and messing with the pitch wheel, and that ended up creating exactly that kind of battle ready, crying out kind of synth that I was looking for. And I also added a little texture phrase kind of sound that I found from Splice, and this is how everything sounds together right now. Now with the brass, the flute, the battle call lead melody, everything has already stacked up into sounding like something super huge. But you know what's coming next? We gotta bring in those hard-hitting trap drums to really push the energy into the next level on this one. For the 808, I went with a long and distorted, but not too distorted 808, and I just followed the root notes of the chords. To keep things moving and add a little bit more hype, I added some really quick 808 rolls at the end of some bars. It's a small detail, but it definitely pushes the energy into the next bar. And for the drums, you know we need some hard-hitting trap drums, so I just went with a very simple trap pattern with hi-hat rolls and perks just to give it a little bit more energy. It's nothing too crazy, but just enough to make sure that the beat keeps moving on. And as soon as I dropped those drums in, the whole beat came to life. And with that, all of the 3 beats are done. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a comment down below and let me know what artists you would want me to cover next. But for now, let's run through all of the beats we made today.